Tonight, tornado outbreak in the plains. Up to 25 tornadoes in 3 states as storm watch warnings go into effect across the heartland. The damage and the trajectory of the storms tonight. Plus, the anti-war protests at colleges and universities now sweeping the nation. Hundreds arrested as tensions reach a fever pitch. And
certainly, Ocean K is one example where already there is improvement because of actions, the interventions by MSC.
They're an industry that's been blamed in part for their impact on the environment. But in tonight's Prime Focus, we take you to the Bahamas for a look at how a cruise industry company is doing its part to restore the marine ecosystem back to life as our Power of Us series continues. Good evening, everyone. I'm Trevor Auld in for Lindsay Davis. Thank you so much for streaming with us. We're following all of those stories and much more, including the latest incident in the skies. A Delta plane bound for Los Angeles forced to turn around after an emergency slide suddenly deployed midair. Plus, Secretary of State Antony Blinken's meeting with Chinese President Xi, what they discussed, and what it could mean for that TikTok ban. And lifelong dreams turning into reality at the NFL draft. We are backstage with the new stars that are waiting to make their mark on the biggest sporting stage in the world. But we begin with the tornado emergency in the heartland. More than 24 reported tornadoes across 3 states. 20 million Americans on alert tonight for severe weather. And take a look at this twister in Nebraska this afternoon. This is not far from Omaha. That video just stunning. And this tornado captured in Akron, Colorado. These severe storms overturning a big rig. This happened in Oklahoma. Those dangerous storms moving through. At least 3 tornadoes reported in that area. Homes damaged, trees, power lines down, and it will be a long night ahead in the path of these storms as another system is already behind it. ABC senior meteorologist Rob Marciano tracking it all for us.
Tonight, a tornado emergency in Nebraska as a powerful system tears across multiple states. A huge funnel cloud crossing Interstate 80 near Lincoln, Nebraska.
Semi's overturned up here.
Storm chasers racing to check on the driver of an overturned tractor trailer.
He's okay, he's okay.
This is a tornado on the ground.
Our Lincoln, Nebraska affiliate KLKN broadcasting live as the massive tornado bears down on the Capitol.
It's doing damage. You can see the debris flying around it. As this is just incredible. This is just northeast of the capital city in Waverly.
Pictures coming in from Waverly, Nebraska. Workers gathering outside a damaged factory there. Not far away, several cars of a freight train derailing. West of Omaha, storm chasers spotting this massive wedge tornado near Rockville.
Oh my gosh.
Nearly 30 reported tornadoes and counting. This dangerous outbreak far from over.
And since it is far from over, let's get right to Rob Marciano. Now, Rob, those videos are just astounding, but what's coming next?
More of the same, unfortunately, Trevor. We'll look for these storms to wind down, but not for another 3 or 4 hours. Iowa, you're in it right now. Multiple warnings happening and watches that extend across 6 states until at least 9 o'clock. Flood watches as well for the storms that will come tomorrow, because we're going to reset the table. These storms will wane as they quickly move across the Great Lakes and into the Northeast overnight tonight into tomorrow. Then we reset the table for the plains in the Midwest tomorrow afternoon. Look at the storms firing again across Texas, across the Red River, I-35 and through Oklahoma City, just east of Wichita. And then on Sunday, Little Rock, Springfield, St. Louis, even Chicago getting into the act for storms. But tomorrow looks to be the highest threat of seeing more in the way of destructive and potentially deadly tornadoes. Trevor?
All right, Rob Marciano, thank you. Next, the remarkable new testimony in the first ever criminal trial of a former president, Donald Trump's longtime former assistant taking the stand to testify. For 34 years, Rona Graff worked alongside Trump at Trump Tower, witnessing just about everyone who came and went. And today, Graff told jurors she remembers seeing Stormy Daniels in the reception area outside Trump's office on the 26th floor, and that she said she knew Stormy Daniels was a porn star. Now, Trump's lawyers did give a reason why Daniels was at Trump Tower, saying it was not because of an affair. We're standing by for legal analysis of all of it, but first, our Aaron Katersky once again tonight from the courthouse.
She was one of Donald Trump's longest-serving and most loyal employees, hired by the Trump Organization back in 1987.
Hi, it's Ron upstairs in Mr. Trump's office.
Becoming a familiar face to TV audiences on The Apprentice as the ever-present woman outside his office.
Mr. Trump will meet you.
And today, Trump's former personal assistant, Rona Graff, walking with a cane, entered the Manhattan courtroom, passing her old boss on her way to the witness stand, Trump dropping his head when her name was called. Graff's testimony was brief, but all those years of record-keeping packing a punch. She kept Trump's calendar and his contacts, and Graff told the jury she entered information for porn star Stormy Daniels, including her mobile phone number. And there was more. Graff testified she had a vague recollection of seeing Daniels in Trump Tower, in the reception area on the 26th floor. Trump denies he had an affair with Daniels, but prosecutors say she was paid $130,000 to keep quiet before the 2016 election, and Trump illegally falsified business records to cover it up. Graff also testified she entered contact information for Karen McDougal, the former Playboy model who claimed she had an affair with Trump. Graff said she typed in 2 addresses, a cell phone number, and an email address. Trump denies that affair, too, but former National Enquirer publisher David Pecker has testified that at Trump's direction, his tabloid bought McDougal's story but never ran it to protect Trump's campaign. And after the election, Pecker told the jury Trump thanked him. On cross-examination, Trump's lawyer Susan Nicholas suggested Stormy Daniels visited Trump Tower because she was being considered for a role on The Apprentice. Graff said there was office chatter about that. I vaguely recall hearing Trump say that Daniels may be one of the interesting people who could be on the show. But no ambiguity on one point. When Trump's lawyer asked Graff if she wanted to be there in court, her one-word answer, no. And as she left the witness stand, Trump rose out of his chair to greet her, whispering some words and extending his hand.
Clearly a witness with some very personal ties to the former president. Aaron Katersky's at the Manhattan courthouse for us once again. So, Aaron, Rona Graff was not the only witness today. We know a former bank manager also took the stand. So what did we learn from his testimony?
Gary Farrow is his name, and he's a banker for Michael Cohen. So the jury got to hear some of the granular details, Trevor, about the shell company that Cohen set up to pay Stormy Daniels her hush money. And remember, prosecutors have to prove that when Trump paid Cohen back, he falsified business records so voters wouldn't find out. Trevor?
Aaron Katersky, thank you. And joining me now to discuss what we witnessed today at former President Trump's trial is Jeremy Saland. He's a criminal defense attorney and a former Manhattan prosecutor. Jeremy, thanks so much for being here. So given these witnesses that we've seen now, there's been several of them, what have you been able to glean about the prosecution's strategy?
Well, you know, what they're trying to do is have us all kind of be born from, if you will, David Pecker, and taking the sort of the mystique and the chaotic nature away from Michael Cohen. So we have David Pecker laying the foundation. It's not an adversarial witness with the defense, understanding how Michael Cohen got involved, understanding his connection to former President Trump. And then you have his former President Trump's personal assistant coming in and sort of filling in some of the gaps and explaining, well, you know, listen, I can see why David Pecker didn't have that agreement with the former president. But we know that based on her, what she says, she's kind of like a living, breathing Rolodex and email system for the former president. So it's all coming together, and it's not just about Michael Cohen.
Yeah, I mean, digging a little bit deeper on that personal assistant, Rona Graff. So she was a witness for the defense, but she was called to testify by the prosecution. Given what she was able to shine light on the stand, do you feel that her testimony helps or hurts the former president?
I think it really actually kind of hurts and helps, because she kind of distracts away and she makes the president out to be a little bit of a regular guy. I think that she helps fill in the blanks, but she's not somebody who's gave the prosecution a lot to sink their teeth into for more information.
You kind of touch on it there a little bit in your answer, but I mean, to be clear, the former president is not on trial here because he allegedly had an affair with Stormy Daniels, or even that hush money payments were made here. These were financial-based crimes. I guess, can you explain the purpose of then asking the former personal assistant to detail what she remembers about Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal?
Well, it gives reason and understanding as to how they're involved. And it also, you hear some more evidence that starts to corroborate David Pecker about being, a meticulous person. And he's the one who signed the checks and he's the one who was involved in the finances and the day-to-day. He wasn't some innocent bystander. So she just really starts plugging, as I said before, plugging in those holes and putting the pieces together. And we're going to hear eventually from Stormy Daniels, who will say, yeah, I was there, but not because I was going to be on The Apprentice. I was there for other reasons. So it's sometimes evidence doesn't have to prove anything. It just needs to support or not challenge something. And that's what she did. And she could have been adversarial, a heck of a lot more adversarial. She was down there on a subpoena. And one of the things that the prosecutor can say is, she came down and supported some of the evidence we showed, and she did it because she didn't even want to do it, and she still did it.
Along with Stormy Daniels' testimony, what key pieces of evidence are you still waiting to see introduced in this trial?
Well, again, the big ugly is Michael Cohen, because right now you have the defense saying that there was no affair, or going to say there was no affair, and that Donald Trump was sort of a bystander in what was going on. And then you're going to hear from Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels. Stormy Daniels will say, yeah, we were having the affair, which, to your point, is not what the case is really about, but it sets the stage and understands the motive and intent behind it. And then you can have Michael Cohen, who's going to say, I did these payments. This is how the money came into be. The boss that we've heard, we all know who that is, but you're going to hear who the boss was, not just an assumption. So it's slowly but surely coming along. Hope Hicks is going to be there as well. So you're going to slowly and surely start filling and plugging in those gaps, according to the prosecution, if you believe their story, to reach to the former president.
A lot of the discourse says that this trial is going to hinge on the credibility of Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels. Do you buy that?
I buy it to a certain extent. Obviously, they have to have credibility. And I hate to repeat the same thing over and over, but this is why someone like David Pecker, who doesn't come across as incredible, he has no agenda. He's not like Michael Cohen, who's angry and wants to say and do, we'll call it bad things to the former president, to see Trump be in so much trouble. So if you just looked at Michael Cohen, you'd say, well, why would I believe that guy? He's just not being honest. It's not honest discourse. This is where the other evidence comes in to say it supports what he's saying. Use your common sense, follow that path. You may not like him, you may not trust him, but even a liar can tell the truth.
Criminal defense attorney Jeremy Salan, thank you for your time.
My pleasure.
Now to those protests continuing to spread at campuses across the country over the war in Gaza. Demonstrators have been clashing with police. It's led to dozens of arrests. One school is in talks with students over the future of an encampment. And ABC's Stephanie Ramos has the latest on these demonstrations as colleges struggle to manage the chaos.
We will not stop, we will not rest. From Phoenix to Washington to Texas, tonight, campus protests against the war in Gaza spreading with no end in sight. At Ohio State overnight, police clashing with pro-Palestinian protesters, 36 arrested. Students calling on schools to divest from companies that profit from ties to Israel.
These protests are being labeled as anti-Semitic, which is really a false statement insofar as so many of the student organizers, myself included, are Jewish.
Outside Columbia University, pro-Israel counter-protesters calling for the release of hostages.
The release of hostages must come first and foremost in order to end the suffering on both sides.
Today, Jewish students called on Columbia to keep every student safe.
On this campus, people chant that Zionists are not welcome, calling on, quote, death to the Jewish state.
Be grateful that I'm not just going out and murdering Zionists.
Back in January, Columbia student protester Kaimani James live-streamed those comments after a disciplinary hearing with the school probing similar posts. Today, protest organizers distancing themselves from him.
He apologized and he asked for space to reflect and learn and grow, and that he will step away from being press spokesperson.
All right, so let's bring in Stephanie Ramos from Columbia. So, Steph, we know that the university did look into that student video, but how are they responding to it?
Well, the university, yes, is addressing the video posted by that student, calling it extremely alarming, adding that calls for violence are unacceptable. Now, as for the talks between university officials and the student protesters that are still on campus here at Columbia University, those talks are ongoing tonight, Trevor.
And it has already been a sliding deadline. Stephanie Ramos, thank you. The final defendant has been sentenced in Denver for the 2019 death of Elijah McClain. McClain was confronted by 3 police officers while he was walking home. They threw him to the ground and placed him in a chokehold. And then paramedics arrived and injected McClain with an excessive amount of ketamine to sedate him, but he later died. Former EMT Jeremy Cooper gave McClain the shot, and today he received 4 years probation for criminally negligent homicide. 2 other first responders have already been convicted. McClain's mother spoke at today's sentencing.
Jeremy Cooper heard my son talking and was there for my son's last words. Nothing Jeremy Cooper can say will bring back my son or remove my son's blood from his hands.
Next tonight, we are tracking the latest incident in the skies. A Delta plane bound for Los Angeles forced to turn around after an emergency slide suddenly deployed midair. So take a look at what 185 passengers saw as the plane was heading back to JFK. Our Kana Whitworth has more on what we're learning about what went wrong.
Tonight, a mid-air scare for passengers on board a Delta flight leaving New York for Los Angeles after an emergency slide fell off the aircraft shortly after takeoff.
Once the floor started rattling, then it got a little
I didn't realize it was
the floor was rattling though? Yeah.
A group of students among the 183 passengers and crew on Flight 520 departing JFK around 8:30 a.m. today.
Delta 520, yeah, we got an indication of the right wing slide latch on the door. One of the latches is showing an open indication.
Moments later, the pilots declaring an emergency.
I was going to pick up a slight vibration and some banging noise from that right wing slide. But so far, everything's pushing normal.
Eventually, deciding to head back as soon as possible.
We plan on returning back to Kennedy, have maintenance take a look at it. We are starting to get a little bit of vibrations on that right side.
The 33-year-old Boeing 767 landing safely back at JFK about a half hour after it took off. Aerials showing crew examining the plane on the tarmac. In a statement tonight, Delta saying in part, it was observed that the emergency slide had separated from the aircraft. Delta is fully supporting retrieval efforts and will fully cooperate in investigations. Tonight, those passengers finally reaching LAX after they were placed on a different plane.
It's one of those things you just never want to hear, that we have to turn our plane around because something is falling off. That's just a scary thing to hear.
I mean, Trevor, certainly some scary moments there, but nearly everyone we spoke with complimented the crew. They said they kept everything extremely calm. That aircraft has now been taken out of service while the FAA investigates. Trevor.
All right, Kana Whitworth for us. Kana, thank you very much. And heading overseas now to the war in Gaza, the U.S. is holding off on imposing sanctions on Israeli military units who are accused of human rights violations. ABC's Tom Soufi-Burge is in Israel tonight.
Tonight, the U.S. declining to sanction 3 Israeli military units accused of abusing Palestinian civilians, including the one seen in this 2019 video shown in an Israeli court and used to convict 5 soldiers of abusing detainees. Soldiers from that same unit also seen kicking 2 Palestinian men in this video from 2022 that led to an internal IDF investigation and suspensions. In a letter first obtained by ABC News, Secretary of State Antony Blinken saying because Israel has taken steps to address the issues, the U.S. will not delay the delivery of any U.S. assistance to the IDF, despite a U.S. investigation determining those units were, quote, credibly implicated in a gross violation of human rights against Palestinians in the occupied West Bank prior to October 7. Issa Amro, a Palestinian human rights activist in the West Bank town of Hebron, has Israeli soldiers posted right next to his home.
They threatened to shoot me many times.
He says the Biden administration's failure to act will make things worse for Palestinians.
They are not doing concrete actions to reduce violence to minimum.
And Tom Soufi-Burge joins us now from Jerusalem. So, Tom, has the IDF reacted to this news?
They have, Trevor. The IDF saying it acts to address any incidents that deviate from the values expected of IDF soldiers, adding alleged criminal offences are investigated. Trevor?
Tom Soufi-Burge for us. Tom, thank you. Also tonight, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has announced $6 billion in weapons purchases for Ukraine. That money will buy new weapon systems, including additional Patriot missiles meant to counter Russian missile barrages on Ukrainian cities. And this is the second time this week that the Pentagon has provided Ukraine with new aid out of the $61 billion that was passed earlier this week by Congress. Meantime, Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with President Xi Jinping in China and along with several other Chinese officials. The State Department says the two sides had an an in-depth and constructive discussion about areas of difference as well as areas of cooperation as part of responsibility managing competition, and that Blinken emphasized the U.S. will continue to stand up for our interests and values and those of America's allies, including on human rights and economic issues. And King Charles is resuming his public duties for the first time since his cancer diagnosis. Buckingham Palace says he will visit a cancer treatment center on Tuesday to meet with patients and healthcare workers. The palace says the king's medical team is encouraged so far by his progress during recovery. And we still have much more to get to here on Prime. The AI-generated imitation of a late great rapper. It was included on a song by one of the world's biggest current stars. We'll tell you why the single was taken down from streaming sites. But next, we're going to take you to a small island that's been transformed by an unexpected company.
This is something that has never been done before. My dream was not only to transform an island or to create a destination, but was to actually have an impact that was environmentally correct.
Whenever news breaks,
we are here in Israel, a nation at war after that brutal surprise attack by Hamas.
On the ground in Ukraine, reporting from Lewiston, Maine.
The scene of a horrific mass shooting.
ABC News Live is right there everywhere.
From the scene of that deadly missile strike in Dnipro, Ukraine.
Reporting from the earthquake in Turkey.
In Rolling Fork, this tornado tore through this little town.
From the most devastating disaster in Hawaii.
From Charleston, South Carolina, on the 2024 campaign trail.
In Iceland, let's go.
Traveling with the president in Mexico City.
Wherever the story.
From the front lines, from southern Israel.
Outside the Gaza Strip.
In Beirut.
From the FBI.
Reporting from the nurses on the picket line.
Here at 10 Downing Street in London.
Streaming live to you.
Wherever the story is.
Wherever the story is.
Wherever the story is. We're going to take you there.
You're streaming.
ABC News Live.
ABC News Live.
You're streaming ABC News Live.
ABC News Live. Streaming free everywhere. America's #1 streaming news.
First thing in the morning.
There's a lot going on.
Yet another avalanche warning that's up.
To catch you up with what happened overnight. A dangerous ice storm is impacting the morning commute.
What's happening today? Escalating tensions in the Middle East.
What people are talking about. The migrant crisis.
Fast, straightforward.
With some fun in between.
How does billionaire sound?
Sounds good to me. The moose started chasing a dog.
First thing in the morning.
America This Morning.
America's #1 early morning news.
On ABC News Live.
What does it take to be the most watched newscast in America?
We are part of an operation.
Is this our Combat Operations Center?
We're approaching the gate. Militants came in from different directions. Nuclear reactor. So you have a couple loaded and ready to go. The house is destroyed, but the flag.
Not a tear in it.
How important it made to USA. Great work.
Hi. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Ismail?
David. I'm David Muir.
I know you are.
You
Watch
do?
you every night.
ABC's World News Tonight with David Muir is America's most watched newscast.
Can you believe it? It's 25 years of breakfast in bed, surprising moms across America.
Oh, my goodness!
Oh, my goodness. And for our 25th anniversary, we're making it the biggest surprise yet.
A full-on breakfast in bed extravaganza like you have never seen before.
So go to goodmorningamerica.com or scan this QR code to find out how to enter a deserving mom you love for breakfast in bed.
Let's go.
The ship is incredible. It feels like living in a science fiction movie.
We just saw what no one has seen before.
Wow, look at that.
Oh my gosh.
Well, dead ahead. Tag on!
We are heading into the unknown.
Hammer, hammer, hammer.
It doesn't get any more cutting edge than this. As we wrap up this year's Earth Week, we now take you to Ocean Cay in the Bahamas. It was once a dumping ground, but it's now been transformed into a marine reserve, and the group behind it is a cruise line. Inez de la Cuatera has tonight's Prime Focus for us.
It may look like paradise. White sand beaches, swaying palm trees.
That's beautiful.
And the bluest waters you've ever seen. Under the sea, thriving endangered reefs and a lush marine ecosystem. But Ocean Cay wasn't always like this. After years of sand mining, the Bahamian island had become a wasteland on the brink of environmental disaster. Until the Mediterranean Shipping Company, known as MSC, one of the world's biggest cruise and cargo ship operators, and the MSC Foundation spent $500 million to rehabilitate the island, transforming the site into a nature preserve for their cruise ship guests to enjoy. Workers spent months pulling out all the metal, derelict machinery, and debris left behind. The project is the brainchild of MSC's executive chairman, Pier Francesco Vago.
This is something that has never been done before. My dream was not only to transform an island or to create a destination, but was to actually have an impact that was environmentally correct.
More than 75,000 indigenous plants, trees, and shrubs imported, the location for each carefully mapped out.
We have a surveyor with the GPS, and he have the design drawing on his GPS.
This part here has been completely man-made, but it's part of their efforts to try and reestablish diversity on the island. They now have iguanas, turtles, and all sorts of fish coming to live here.
This is what we suspend in the water.
Owen O'Shea leads the marine project on the island. He shows us the coral trees they're using to help rebuild the reefs, because the crown jewel of their restoration efforts actually lies beneath the surface. Coral reefs not only provide barriers from large storms and swells, protecting low-lying nations like the Bahamas, they're also key for biodiversity. An estimated 25% of all marine life depends on coral reefs. But already, scientists estimate roughly half of the world's reefs have died since the 1950s. Up to 90% could be lost by 2030 due to global warming, pollution, and overfishing. In their coral nurseries, O'Shea's team has been working to identify corals that are resilient to warming water temperatures.
What we're doing is selecting for the corals that are still thriving in the face of these challenges.
Their efforts now being celebrated by oceanographers around the world, with Mission Blue, an alliance of ocean conservation groups, designating Ocean Key as a hope spot.
Certainly, Ocean Cay is one example where already there is improvement because of actions, the interventions by MSC.
It's recognition that's not typically associated with the cruise and shipping industry, often slammed by conservation groups as a catastrophe for the planet. According to a recent study published in the Marine Pollution Bulletin, a large cruise ship can have a carbon footprint greater than 12,000 cars. There's also the issue of waste dumped into the sea in the form of oil, sewage, or plastics, while noise pollution can have a major impact on marine wildlife.
Every vessel powered by fossil fuels is making a contribution to the warming of the planet. And the cruise lines, along with everybody else, they're part of it.
That's one of the cruise ships down there. You can see how massive it is. More than 5,000 passengers on board, and they come here 7 days a week.
In its cruise ship report card, the NGO Friends of the Earth giving MSC and other cruise companies failing marks when it comes to protecting the environment. MSC telling us in a statement, the cruise industry as a whole has committed to net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. Achieving our environmental targets is not something that the industry can do alone. We need governments, ports and destinations, fuel suppliers, shipyards, regulators, and suppliers to continue to collaborate together.
So MSC spent $500 million to rehabilitate this island. I think the big question is why? Why is MSC doing this?
This is a company that has made its name building ships and embracing our oceans. So it's very fitting that they would invest so heavily in projects and restoration efforts to promote that idea of reversing declines. We all have a responsibility as citizens of planet Earth.
This, as research and polling shows consumers are demanding corporations take responsibility for the environmental impact of their business actions.
I think they should do, yeah. Especially like a big company like this one, I think they should do that.
So that way it helps keep the oceans really nice and all the marine life really nice. So in order for us to keep enjoying it, if they can keep on to that, then I feel like it's important, yeah.
MSC's hope is that their Ocean Key Island will raise awareness and inspire others, both people and corporations, to take action.
We have the power to do something about it right now. We are doing something about it, and we need support and advocacy through guest engagement and education, having these conversations.
Our thanks to Inez de la Cuetara for that report. And ABC News Live is featuring special reporting all week long on the climate challenges we face, and we're empowering stories about some solutions. So be sure to catch the encore presentation of our special, The Power of Us, a deeper look at the impact we can have together to protect our Earth. That's coming up at 8 p.m. right here after ABC News Live. And immediately after that at 8:30 p.m., where does the plastic we're recycling really go? And are companies living up to green promises? That is ahead in Trashed, The Secret Life of Plastic Exports. It's all here on ABC News Live and on Hulu as well. And we still have much more to get to in the meantime. Coming up next, a decade in crisis. What has and hasn't changed since Flint, Michigan's drinking water crisis began. But next, from the stage to bookshelves, how the world's most popular tortured poet is now infiltrating the literary business by the numbers.
What does it take to be the most watched newscast in America?
An operation to capture ISIS fighters.
Is this our Combat Operations Center?
We're approaching the gate now. Militants came in from 4 or 5 different directions. Operational nuclear reactor. So you have a couple loaded and ready to go. The house is destroyed, but the flag, there's not a tear in it.
Not a tear in it.
How important is this label right here, Made in the USA? Look at your smile. You're proud of this.
I love this.
Great work.
Hi.
Where are you? Where are you?
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
David, good to meet you.
Ismail? David.
David.
Yes, yes. I'm David Muir.
I know who you are.
You
I watch
do?
you every night.
ABC's World News Tonight with David Muir is America's most watched newscast.
This is ABC News Live.
The crush of families here in Poland.
At refugee centers.
In Putin's Russia.
On the ground in Ukraine.
Close to the front line.
From the capital.
Destructive Cat 4 storm.
You're along I-5. Boston is in the bullseye.
Let's go.
ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news. Anytime, anywhere. Streaming 24/7, straight to you for free.
Thank you for making ABC News Live America's #1 streaming news.
This is the first time you are sitting down like this to tell your story. Brittany, are you ready? You've been told to go through your bag, and you felt
the cartridge.
What were you thinking at that moment when you felt that?
My life is over right here.
You've just been told you're going to be 9 years in one of the worst prisons in Russia.
Brittany Griner, Robin Roberts, Prisoner in Russia. Wednesday night, May 1st on ABC.
First thing in the morning.
There's a lot going on.
Yet another avalanche warning that's up.
To catch you up with what happened overnight. A dangerous ice storm is impacting the morning commute.
What's happening today? Escalating tensions in the Middle East.
What people are talking about. The migrant crisis.
Fast, straightforward.
With some fun in between.
How does billionaire sound?
Sounds good to me. The moose started chasing a dog.
First thing in the morning.
America This Morning.
America's #1 early morning news.
On ABC News Live.
Why do so many people start their day here?
From ABC News, this is Start Here.
To be in the know and get a different take on the day's top stories.
A lot of news today, so let's get into it.
Listen now to the Daily News Podcast honored with 4 Edward R. Murrow Awards and see why the New York Times calls it a news podcast worth listening to. Start Here, ABC News. Make it your daily first listen.
Now, that's a part of the story I bet you didn't see coming.
Wherever you get your podcasts, Start Here.
It's lunchtime in America, so what are we serving up?
Well, how about everything you need to know?
You know, that sounds pretty good.
Give it to me. Your health, your money, breaking news, pop culture, with the biggest stars, music, trends, and of course, good food. GMA 3, what you need to know. A third hour of GMA in the afternoon.
So join us, afternoons.
For everything you need to know. I love that.
From the 2024 campaign trail in Erie, Pennsylvania, I'm Rachel Scott. Wherever the story is, we'll take you there. You're streaming ABC News Live.
Taylor Swift's Eras Tour has already shattered records, and it is not even close to finish. She'll tour Europe and Canada for most of this year before returning to the U.S., and that has book publishers very happy, since books about Taylor Swift, especially children's books, are flying off the shelves, and it's this evening's By the Numbers. Taylor Swift, A Little Golden Book biography, has sold nearly 300,000 copies this year alone. No other children's picture book has sold nearly as well. And with 2.3 million copies in print, you will have no trouble finding this book. The publisher says they've had to return to the press 16 times to meet demand. But the publisher, Little Brown, thinks they could do even better with the 13 Days of Swiftness, a Christmas celebration for fans. They are planning 500,000 copies for its first printing alone. Now, Penguin knew that they would have a bestseller on their hands with Who is Taylor Swift? 55,000 copies have been sold, and the book has only been out for about 3 weeks now. And of course, books are not the only form of media that are cashing in on everything Taylor Swift. 8,500 theaters in 100 countries premiered the Eras Tour concert film when it opened back in October. But of course, none of the astronomical numbers would be possible if Swift wasn't constantly in the studio. Nearly 2 million copies of her latest double album have been sold. That was only released a week ago. And are you ready for this ridiculous final fact? Of those 2 million copies sold, 700,000 copies have been vinyl because, and this is in the script, why download an album when you can get in your car and drive 20 miles to your nearest record store? I, for the record, own about 100 records. So I'm going to read the script, but there you have it. We have much more ahead here on Prime. They're here, and we are ready to spread love with them across small-town America. Our Lindsay Davis sits down with the cast of We're Here. Plus, screaming her way into a new horror flick, the multi-hyphenate actress Melissa Barrera talks about the troubling world of Abigail. It's ABC News Live Prime on the ones and twos. We'll be right back.
Whenever, wherever news breaks, it's so important to always remember that lives are changed. Here in London, in Buffalo, Uvalde, Texas,
Edinburgh, Scotland, from Poland once again tonight. Thank you so much for streaming with us. Ukrainian refugees here in Warsaw.
Do you think you'll ever be able to go back home? We're heading to a small community outside of Mexico City.
Splintered houses and splintered lives. The magnitude of the devastation.
You're streaming ABC News Live. Reporting from Rolling Fork, Mississippi.
Santa Fe, New Mexico. Raleigh, North Carolina. The U.S. Capitol. Mayfield, Kentucky. Minneapolis.
Mexico. Tongass National Forest, Alaska.
Getting you behind the stories as they happen. Giving you a front row seat to our world as it plays out in real time, live. ABC News Live Prime. We'll take you there.
Stream ABC News Live weeknights, America's most honored streaming news program, only on ABC News Live. Streaming free right now wherever you stream your news.
First thing in the morning.
There's a lot going on.
Yet another avalanche warning that's up.
To catch you up with what happened overnight.
A dangerous ice storm is impacting the morning commute.
What's happening today? Escalating tensions in the Middle East.
What people are talking about. The migrant crisis.
Fast, straightforward.
With some fun in between.
How does billionaire sound?
Sounds good to me. The moose started chasing a dog.
First thing in the morning.
America This Morning.
America's #1 early morning news.
On ABC News Live.
This is ABC News Live.
The crush of families here in Poland.
At refugee centers
In Putin's Russia.
On the ground in Ukraine.
Close to the front line.
from the capital.
Destructive Cat 4 storm.
Along I-5.
Boston is in the bullseye.
Let's go.
ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news. Anytime, anywhere. Streaming 24/7, straight to you for free.
Thank you for making ABC News Live America's #1 streaming news.
Sunday night.
People think they really know you. What do you think is the biggest misconception about you?
John Bon Jovi.
I don't live for the applause. You got to do it over and over again because, you know, the pretty picture's going to fade.
The all-new event special.
I'm going to start singing, by the way. I'm a cowboy.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael.
Michael Strahan, John Bon Jovi.
I'm a rock and roll star. I'm not a saint. I'm John Bon Jovi.
Halfway there. Sunday night on ABC.
Get ready, America, every Friday.
The hottest trends, styles, and must-have. What's the right stuff to buy right now? I really love that. It's time to buy the right stuff.
Yes!
And save big time, too.
The right stuff.
Fridays on GMA. You're going to love it.
Why do so many people start their day here?
From ABC News, this is Start Here.
To be in the know and get a different take on the day's top stories. Start Here.
Now, that's a part of the story I bet you didn't see coming.
Make it your daily first listen, wherever you get your podcasts.
A Drake song pulled off the internet, an investigation into Tesla, and an NFL player found dead. These stories and more in tonight's rundown.
Flint, Michigan marked a decade since its water crisis began. People took to the streets to mark the anniversary Thursday and demand more work be done. 10 years to the day that officials changed the drinking water source in a cost-cutting move, causing lead and other contaminants to ruin the water supply. On the same day, Flint offered tours of its water plant to show advancements that have been made in recent years. Rapper Drake has taken down a song using an AI-generated imitation of the late rapper Tupac Shakur. That from Billboard magazine, which says that the estate representing Shakur sent Drake a cease and desist letter this week over the diss track Tailor-Made Freestyle, threatening to pursue legal remedies if he didn't remove it in 24 hours. The estate said the imitation of the late rapper's voice violated his publicity rights and was a blatant abuse of his legacy. Philadelphia 76ers star Joel Embiid says he has recently been playing through Bell's palsy. The center, speaking after leading his team to a Game 3 win over the Knicks last night, said the condition has affected the left side of his face, mouth, and eye, causing his vision to get blurry at times. But Embiid promised to play through it.
It's unfortunate. That's the way I look at it. But that's not an excuse. Gotta keep, pushing.
The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration is investigating whether a Tesla recall last year to address its autopilot system was effective enough. The original recall in December, which involved 2 million vehicles, was supposed to allow for a software update to improve the safety of the autopilot system. But the agency said that 20 crashes have been reported since the fix was put in place, as well as preliminary testing of the fixed vehicles, raising concerns over whether the recall did enough. Former NFL offensive lineman Corey Cunningham was found dead in his New Jersey home. The body of the former tackle, who spent time with the Cardinals, Patriots, and Giants, was found Thursday, say media reports. No cause of death was given. The Giants remembered Cunningham as a vital part of the spirit and camaraderie of the locker room.
The 1 in a million pregnancy. Alabaman Shelly Pascoe had a rare double uterus pregnancy with a fetus in each. She and husband John now sharing twins Camden and Kaylee with the world. 29-year-old Pascoe was born with 2 uteri, a condition known as uterine didelphys, known to affect only about 0.3% of women. And the chances of being pregnant in both at once, exceptionally rare. The delivery went off without a hitch. The babies born March 6, 2 minutes apart.
It was a really wonderful experience.
And they're both healthy and happy and doing so well.
Next tonight, they are popular drag queens who are on a mission to spread love and connection across small-town America. And ABC News Live Prime anchor Lindsay Davis sat down with the cast of We're Here.
When I say we're, you say here. We're here. We're here. And we're not going anywhere.
Even before you know another drag queen, is there already an assumption that their journey to this point has been a difficult one?
It's a good question. Wow, you are. This is why you do what you do. Okay, so 100%. A lot of times as queer people or boys who are trying to find themselves and how to fit in, drag kind of becomes that gateway that you didn't even know was possible.
Give me your journey of how you found drag.
I would go out to the drag bars and you go watch drag and something happens to you. You're like, wow, I can finally afford to go see a pop star because those Beyonce tickets are very expensive. You fall in love with the queens. And then I watched a show called Drag Race for the first time. And I discovered this queen on it named Sasha Velour. And I was like, she was on the first ever season of Drag Race I ever watched.
When you were just a little child.
When I was just a little baby.
Literally, when I was a child, I was dressing up and playing with makeup and wanting to explore femininity. My mom hated makeup, didn't have heels, and I was desperately trying to find some. She had one pair of tap heels that I would put on, and then I'd have to tiptoe really quietly because she could hear this clunking metal through the floor. I wore a tea cozy as a wig on my head. Wow. I say that drag saved my life because I was so depressed. I was so lacking in self-confidence in myself. And drag helped me discover my own non-binary and gender fluid identity, that there's a life for people beyond these limiting boxes of male and female. That blew my mind.
It was kind of a complicated thing because with my father, we would talk about like what it was like for me to be gay, and he was like, "But promise me you won't come here dressed around the house as a girl." One time I got ready for drag and I was extremely sick, and it was like at the beginning of my drag career, and like he shaved my face for me and was like, "And this is how you've been doing it wrong," and like took care of me. It made me build a deeper relationship with my father and my family.
You all have kind of talked about a few common themes of being seen, acceptance, life-saving. Has it gotten better? And Latrice, I'll ask this to you first because you've been doing this for 30 years. Do you feel like it's easier now?
No, it's getting harder. It's getting way more difficult to just exist and be yourself, and it's scary. I don't want to go back 50, 60, 70 years, and thank goodness for shows like We're Here who sheds light on rural areas where it's not easy to exist in those kind of places.
Are there like a lot of other queer people?
We're here, but we're not vocal here. Does that make sense? We're all hiding.
What did you think about the backlash that's been happening against drag and, of course, against trans people?
I will say that I'm very scared. I'm not going to run from Tennessee, though, because that's what they want me to do.
We've been around forever, including in beautiful small towns in the middle of fields like the one where I grew up.
Talk to me about the significance of the title, We're Here, and why you feel that this show has the potential to be so impactful.
All four of us lived for 1 month in Tennessee, and then we lived for a month in Oklahoma, and although we were like, oh, wait a minute, we gotta like live, they're like, yeah, like you're gonna get coffee where people get coffee in small towns. We were there. We were like day to day when cameras were off. We held a meet and greet in a park, and it was very scary. Like the Facebook comments were like, 3 well-placed bullets will take care of this pedophile problem.
It's about us coming into a space and like trying to impact change. When we leave those spaces, then they have to live there and they have to continue leadership and try to build for the queer community.
At one point, it seemed like you all might be arrested.
Got an interesting call from our security team this morning, concerned that you might actually be under threat of getting arrested if we do this.
Oh my God. And that was wild. I think we looked extremely fabulous, and we should have been very much welcomed. But we were under a real threat of being arrested, and it's supposed to be the separation of church and state, which is very confusing.
A lot of us aren't exactly trying to be political, but if you're going to be arrested just for doing this, like it's instantly politicized. And I think for all of the people that we were encountering, queer people trying to exist all throughout the country, like their existence is political. Them continuing to live who they are, they'd have to go completely into hiding to not be seen as being political or perhaps threatening to some.
My take on it being gay is that it's a choice.
Really? No one would choose to be ostracized. It's always the people who have never met a drag queen, never been to a drag show, don't have a clue about the culture or what we do, that are passing these laws and legislations.
Often in these spaces, not only are the queer people scared, but when you come into these spaces where people are controlled, women are afraid, people who are disabled are afraid. The powers that would try to silence us are also trying to silence so many other people.
Yep.
What do you think is the biggest misconception about drag queens?
Everyone sexualizes drag.
Yes.
There's nothing sexual about what we're doing. There's so many layers of tights and foam rubber under here, like, ain't nothing sexy about that, baby. Let me just tell you. This is for pure delight and entertainment purposes. We bring joy and light to the world.
Tell me about the drag queen who was running for mayor.
That's your baby?
That's my drag baby.
When I was still running for an elected position in the county.
Running for
county mayor.
For county mayor.
Right. And I'd already had someone shoot a bullet through my house for being a gay drag queen running for office.
Do you think that you all change minds?
For sure.
Absolutely.
For sure.
And it's not about like full 360 change. It's just by just challenging some ideas when the same ideas are not being echoed back at you.
How can people be allies?
Just imagine you wake up out of bed and you don't have to care about what people think or what people think you have to do. I think like being an ally means giving us that freedom and also giving themselves that freedom.
Staying silent is not neutral in this moment, not up against lies.
Reach out to the people that you know who are queer. Just opening your mouth and talking is the first way to start for us to actually show support and for any change to actually happen.
I need you to show up and not just to talk about it. Don't be at the brunches and the kiki. I need you to show up at the polls and show us that you're allies and really help us with this.
Our thanks to Lindsay Davis for that. And next tonight, after taking the spotlight in telenovelas, musicals, and the Scream franchise, multi-hyphenate actress Melissa Barrera now steps into the eerie world in the film Abigail. A band of criminals kidnap the daughter of an underworld figure, but their ransom plans take a harrowing turn when Abigail reveals herself to be something far more ominous than they ever imagined. And our Juju Chang talked with Melissa Barrera about the film and her role as a would-be criminal overcoming a troubled past.
First of all, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate your being able to come down and sit with us. And so you're starring in Abigail, and it's a film about how even kids can be kind of the essence of monsters. What do you think the theme of this one is?
Well, it's part of the Universal monster universe.
You all came highly recommended. You know the rules. No real names, no backstories, no cell phones.
So whose kid is she? It's a movie about vampires, and in this case, the vampire happens to be a 12-year-old girl.
What's your name? Mine's Abigail.
You can call me Joey.
Do you have any kids?
I have a little boy. I think there's a fascination in the horror genre of kids being the scary, you know, I find the evil part or the villain of the story, I think, is very intriguing and very scary. I find that the scariest movies for me were when there was like children that were ghosts, but like always kids. I think that there's something that people love to see about that.
It's the twisted innocence, because she goes from being daddy's little girl to a vampire villain.
The movie goes from this little girl gets kidnapped, and it turns out that she kidnapped all of them. They're all trapped in this house with her, and now they have to figure out what to do.
You played Joey,
I do.
Sort of skilled medic, and the other team members are a driver, a sniper, a medic, the muscle, the hacker, and the thin man, AKA head of ops. How fun must have been to have this team of actors playing a team of kidnapped rescuers?
It feels like the island of misfit toys.
Yes.
Like it feels like all these people that are so different and such like different personalities in the movie, but also us as actors. The child that gets kidnapped, Abigail, is a ballerina. And so there's this play on Swan Lake, because the theme of Swan Lake is what opens our movie, because she's practicing.
A ballerina vampire.
And she's a vampire killer that's constantly like pirouetting and doing very graceful movements as she's hunting the crew down.
But there's also the white swan, black swan metaphor of good versus evil.
Exactly.
Interesting. And so you say you're covered in blood more than ever before, in some ways, but without giving too much away, what other thrills can the audience expect?
It's a very unexpectedly funny movie. I think you go in and you think you're going to see a horror, and you don't expect that you're going to laugh as much as you will watching this movie.
You've been quoted as saying that your character Joey represents a bit of a departure from other Latina roles. What do you mean by that?
I think it's one of the characters that I've played that it's the most unlike me, which is always great, you know, to get to play someone that is not that close to you. I think it's a challenge. But it also, like, the character was not written as Latina, which I think is beautiful, you know, that they allowed me to take on this role, and because I am Latina, then the character becomes a Latina.
I just don't scare easy, so when I do, I pay attention.
How do you navigate this sort of multicultural aspect of your identity?
That's a really good
in
question.
Hollywood?
Yeah, no one's ever asked me that. I guess I just know that I'm seen as a minority in the industry, so I know that I'm constantly fighting against a current, but with great pride and with the responsibility and the privilege of being one of the faces of my community. So I want to keep fighting for more seats at the table for us so that, you know, movies and TV can be a more accurate reflection of what our world looks like.
That's amazing. You are also part of the Scream franchise for years, and I know that you were dismissed from your role in Scream 7 because you posted a social media message about the Israel-Gaza war. How do you approach the aftermath of that?
As gracefully as I have been able to. I've been very lucky that I've gotten a lot of support. I've been very clear about my stance on this conflict, and I'm sad about the way that things happen. I don't think that was necessary, but I feel very at peace.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Our thanks to Juju and Melissa Barrera. Abigail is now showing in theaters nationwide. And finally tonight, the NFL draft and the lifelong dreams turning into reality for these players. Our Will Reeve backstage with the new stars as they prepare to make the leap to the pros.
It's night 2 of the NFL draft.
Caleb Williams.
Overnight, the #1 pick, Caleb Williams. The Chicago Bears drafting the Heisman-winning quarterback. Fans in Chicago cheering at their home stadium.
Everything's great. They got Caleb Williams. I'm happy.
Williams with us backstage.
You showed so much emotion and so much excitement walking out on stage, giving a big roar. Where was that emotion coming from?
It came from 12 years of hard work, 12 years of sacrifice. I didn't plan for it. It just happened.
A night of emotion and history. 5 quarterbacks drafted in the first 10 picks, a record as lives are forever changed.
The emotion and excitement is clear to see on the faces of the players and their families and the fans. Many hundreds of thousands more expected here tonight for rounds 2 and 3 of the NFL draft in Detroit. Trevor.
All right, Will Reeve, thank you very much. And that is our show for this hour. I'm Trevor Ault. Stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. And thanks as always for streaming with us.